Welcome to Conversations. I'm with Salam Al-Mariyati. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host. And for those of you who watch Conversations regularly, Salam is not new. But for those of you who are watching for the first time, Salam Al-Mariyati is one of the founding fathers of the modern American Muslim community. He is the founder and executive chairman and president of the Muslim Public Affairs Council, MPAC. He has been advocating for Muslims' protection of Muslim rights in this country for more than 3 decades. He has also advocated for Muslim engagement in American politics and, more importantly, in the policy making process. So, Salam, welcome to Conversations.
Always a pleasure to be with you.
It is a bit sad and scary moment that I am reaching out to you. There has been a domestic terrorist attack on the mosque in San Diego, the Islamic Center in San Diego. It is a very beautiful mosque. I have actually had the honor of giving a Friday's Jummah khutbah at the Islamic Center in San Diego several years ago. It's a very beautiful community, very open. And it is very tragic as to what happened. I'm quickly going to summarize to you what happened, and then Salam, you can add any facts that you are aware of. Basically, 2 young people, just reading their ages itself was tragic. One 17 and one 19 went and attacked the mosque. In the process, they have killed 3 people. One of them is the security guard of the mosque. Then they left and they went and killed themselves. So 5 people are dead. 2 of them are these men who committed this attack. And it was very scary because there is also a school on campus. And so there are children there, a Rashid school. But the police acted fantastically. They were on the spot. And I hear that one of the attackers' mom actually had alerted the police about her son leaving in camouflage with her guns and her car. So it is an interesting example of the worst and the best of America at the same time, Salam. How do you see what happened, Salam?
Yeah, as you said, that's the worst of America that we're seeing. I think the most troubling aspect of this is that these were such young people. So they must have been incubated with hatred and incubated with anti-Muslim animus. And things like this is not a real religion. We have a false prophet that he actually worshipped the devil. These are words against our faith going on for centuries. And for people to continue swirling this venom around, then acting surprised when a mosque is attacked by a 17-year-old who took the cues, obviously, because there was anti-Islam on them, according to the police, and it's being investigated as a hate crime. So they must have been acted upon cue from somebody else. And that's really the part that I don't think we're paying attention.
Salam, you know that the last 2 years have been very, very difficult in this country since the wars, the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, and the war in Iran. Now we are kind of involved in 3 wars at the moment, and there is a lot of tension in domestic politics, and there is a lot of hate speech going on in the United States. If you remember when Rabin was assassinated, Rabin had been by an Israeli terrorist, then Bill Clinton had made this comment that hate speech eventually leads to violence. And at that time it was seen as a very radical thing to say. But now it is common wisdom that hate speech automatically leads to violence, and people will act upon hatred if hatred is perpetuated. There has been a significant rise of Islamophobia in the country during these wars in the last 2.5 years. Why have we seen such little action from the governments, both at the state level, federal level? Can we even trust Kash Patel to to be sincere in his battle against Islamophobia, given that a lot of the hate speech is coming from the political party that he belonged to?
I don't think we can trust Mr. Patel, but I do believe that we need to entrust the local law enforcement, including the local federal law enforcement agencies in Southern California, to do an investigation that will be diligent and thorough. So I do have confidence in the local authorities. What happens in Washington is a disaster, as you alluded to. Now, as far as the link between the hate speech and this act, what makes it really horrific is these kids had easy access to guns. And unfortunately, we see the cancer of gun violence in our country happening too often. And one of the story indicated that one of them picked up the guns from his parents' house with the note, and the mom alerted the authorities that her son is dangerous. And so that may have led to a rapid response by law enforcement when they found out about the active shooter at the mosque. But the other aspect of it that you alluded to, yes, the Cash Patel, the princess that have tattoo called Kafir on his arm, and making a mockery of our faith. It's no wonder that people have these views that are distorted and whether they act on it in a violent way or not. Now it seems that this is now established as the first mass shooting of America. And God knows where it's going to go. So we have to do everything to stem that tide of hate right.
Is this the new normal, Salam, or do we have to, like we have seen that there have been attacks on synagogues in this country, and yes, it's a constant problem, but there is now so much of hate crime against Muslims and hate speech. So is this something that we have to prepare for? Would you advise the American Muslim community to take measures towards establishing security, do we need to have security guards now stationed at the masajid?
Yes, absolutely. Doors should be locked unless somebody has permission to come in. And there should be a security guard at every entrance. I have to tell you, there have been too many times I walk, and I can go from the street into the hallway, and through doors that end up in a kid's playroom. And there are no doors that prevent me from walking into the kids' playground. There's nobody asking me where am I going. So security is way too lax in our community. And we're just leaving it to chance, unfortunately. The other aspect of it is that there's a non-profit security grant that is offered by FEMA for enhancing security of house. And mosques, unfortunately, are receiving very little from the funds for these non-profit security grants. So we have to push harder to increase the funding for mosques at this.
One of the challenges that we face is that the masajid are supposed to be open for everybody and anybody. There are people who actually come and just sleep in the mosques. The doors are open. Anybody can come. You don't have to be a Muslim. You don't have to, there's no particular time. And now, unfortunately, the securitization of mosques could actually be detrimental. It could also instill a sense of fear going forward. And I hate to say this, but a lot of this has got to do with the rhetoric. Let me just show you a couple of examples of how our government is spreading hatred. So there is a congressman called Randy Fine. He is very popular with the president of the United States. This is his photograph. He talks about nuking Gaza, for example. He calls Mamdani a terrorist, constantly referring to the mayor, the elected mayor of New York, as a terrorist or a jihadi. And let me show you some comments that have come from Laura Loomer. She is a very close friend of President Trump. She says Americans are united against Sharia law. This is her response. She's trying to justify this attack as if because the Islamic Center was trying to impose Sharia law. She says the shooting in California took place at a jihadi mosque. This is an outright lie. Why don't we sue these people for libel, or are they allowed to do this? Is this free speech? Known for its hate speeches, this shooting was likely planned by Muslims. I mean, look at the hate she's spreading. And this woman has become quite popular. She was recently invited to India by one of India's most prestigious magazines. But she's constantly spreading Islamic hate. And there are these clever tactics that people are using, like saying, they say that we're not attacking Muslims of America. We are saying there's no place for Sharia in America. Like, how do you deal with something like that?
Well, actually, now that the damages, unfortunately, that the Islamic Center of San Diego has dealt with, now they have the right to sue anyone that defames them. And if Laura Loomer says this is a jihadi mosque, then I believe that they can sue Laura Loomer. The problem is when somebody makes a general statement about Islam and Muslims, there's no standing for any kind of litigation. But if somebody is directing defamation against an individual or entity, and there are damages because of that defamation, then I believe that there's grounds for a loss.
Do you think that the American Muslim community has become a bit complacent
Yes.
about combating Islamophobia and engaging in politics?
Yes. Unfortunately, there have been too many wake-up calls, and we have not answered the call to engage more and be more serious about our own security. The hatred is not going to end. There will always be anti-Muslim animus. Even the attacks against the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, are documented. So they've been going on for 100 years. But how we prepare ourselves, that has to change. As I said before, I believe there are too many mosques that allow you to just walk in, and you can go into a classroom, and nobody asks you where you're going. There are no doors that are locked and prevent you from going into classroom. So yes, I do believe we have to be more serious about our own security.
So you're talking about a kind of sensitivity training or awareness training for organizers of the Muslim mosque, who usually are just uncles and cousins who are volunteering on their free time. Most of the mosques are not run by professional staff. Even the big Islamic centers have like one or two people who are full-time, and the rest are all volunteers. But now we will have to have some kind of a institutionalized.
This Islamic Center of San Diego did have a security guard, and he gave his life.
Yeah.
Sacrificed his life to save lives. So may God give him the highest reward in paradise for that sacrifice, and may God also provide comfort for his family and what's left from the deceased. So who has survived him. So there was a security guard. Were there enough security guards? I don't know. But I would imagine that most mosques only have one or two, whereas they need obviously a lot more. And the larger mosques probably have funding to hire security guards. But like you said, most
not. Salam, one of the issues that we are constantly facing is that there is a constant linkage to international affairs with American Muslims. So if something happens, if tomorrow some Muslim organization like the Taliban does something and says it is our Sharia that teaches us to make sure that women don't go to school, we are going to shut down the universities or things like that, that becomes a justification for this whole anti-Sharia rhetoric that is going on. Especially even the governor of Texas, for example, has made it a big deal. People who are running for office in most red states today, they make it a big point to say that there will be no Shariafication of America or things like that. What I don't understand is that why isn't the Muslim community standing up and saying, look, I mean, I wrote about this so many times. I saying, look, America can't even impose Christian law here in the United States. How are Muslims, who are about 1% of the population or a little more than that, going to impose Sharia law? Muslims, where they are 100%, they are not able to impose Sharia law in Muslim countries. So where are they going to impose Sharia law? Is there a need for Muslims to specifically have a campaign to deal with this particular claim, this narrative about Sharia?
Oh, absolutely. But it's a campaign that should not be done on a rational basis, because they don't really care about being educated about what Sharia really is. You try to explain to them that Sharia means the way, and that's the same as saying Jesus is the way. There's a lot of commonality between Islam and Christianity on what they believe is the way to God, and Jewish law is the way to God. And they're all comparable. They don't want to listen to that. They don't want to listen to the fact that Sharia calls on us to preserve life and to defend freedom of faith and freedom of expression. They only use the ignorance of the public about Islam and Muslims to foment fear. And it's being used for political reasons, obviously, for this coming elections. Every time we get close to an election season, then you see a spike of this kind of rhetoric. So I don't think that campaign should be. I think the campaign should offer people some information about Sharia, but the campaign should also expose the tactics to what they are, and that is just trying to get people scared out of their wits to pass legislation.
Salam, I wanted to ask you about this. I just want to go back to the comment that we made, that the Muslim community has become complacent. So in the past few years, we have seen that there are more and more Muslims running for office, and we have had significant success in that area, with Mamdani winning in New York, and Ghazala Hashmi becoming the lieutenant governor of Virginia. In this cycle, we have many people running elsewhere. In Chicago, I noticed a lot of enthusiasm for people to run for office. Junaid Ahmed ran for Congress. So while there is an excitement about engaging in politics, running for office, but we don't see the same enthusiasm or desire to combat Islamophobia that we saw in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, if you remember. And the community was smaller at that time. It was, shall we say, not as well off or as well organized as it is. And one of the problems we used to have in the past was that people like me, for example, who are immigrants, we often speak with an accent. So that often has an alienating effect when we engage with American leaders. But now most of the leaders of the Muslim community are Muslims who are born in the US. So yet, why is there this complacency? And you think this unfortunate attack on the mosque in San Diego, will it change all of that?
I think it will. Unfortunately, I mean, it took this to change the situation. I don't think we can continue doing business as usual. And this day, which is May 18th, will be that watershed moment for American Muslims. Either improve your security and take these threats seriously and come up with strategies on countering the threats, or you're going to be subject to that kind of hate, intimidation, bullying, God forbid, violence. And nobody will be there to support you when it happens. So we do have to engage, and we do have to educate our friends about what is being said. By the way, Congressman Randy Fine said that mainstream Muslims will be destroyed. He said that Muslims are out to destroy us, but before they destroy us, mainstream Muslims should be destroyed. And for Congressman to say that, and he's not censored, and he's not called to resign, that in and of itself is a tragedy in the country. And we should expose these unjust statements and actions, not only by Randy Fine, but those around him.
I mean, these kind of comments he made even when the Democrats were in power, Salam, and we didn't see any. I mean, can you imagine if he had made a comment like that about American Jews? That would be the end of his career instantaneously. But the same people who would have gone after him for making anti-Semitic comments seem to be okay with the persistent, non-stop outpouring of Islamophobia that comes out of his mouth constantly. Like, we don't see him being shunned by the media. We don't see him being shunned by the President of the United States, and especially, I mean, even the Democrats. If you recall, during the Joe Biden campaign, he announced that he was going to launch an anti-Islamophobia campaign. If you remember the initiative, I think you were also invited. Yes. You were invited to the White House, right, for this particular event?
Not that event, but I was involved in meetings about it.
Yeah. So Kamala Harris's husband was leading the initiative, if you recall. What happened to that program? Like, what happened to that? Because there is an anti-Semitism program that is run by the State Department and the U.S. government. But what happened to that Islamophobia? Was that Joe Biden's way of trying to fool Muslims into voting for him, or what? What was that?
It was done a bit late, I have to say. But the people who worked on it very assiduously and I think with conviction. And they came up with a good product. Unfortunately, it was never enforced, and it's just put on the shelf. We can always take it back, but this is what you were referring to. We can't expect politicians to act on what's in the common good, what's right. They will only do things when they're forced to do things. And that's what I mean by complacency of Muslims. They think having a fundraiser for a politician is engaging. It's not. You have to follow up and hold them accountable for the funds that we have given politicians. By the way, I just was out of meeting today, and some experts are saying that Muslims spent over $60 million in political fundraising the last election cycle. So we're spending all that money, and the question is, what are we getting out of it? It's very little because we're not either empowering and supporting advocacy group to follow up on the donation, or we're just saying, just give me the photo off. I just want to be known as the guy who had this congressman, or this senator, or this presidential candidate in my home, and that's it. And that has to change.
Do you know who the other two victims are, Salam, by any chance?
No, I don't. I don't know who they haven't identified them. I saw the names of the two culprits, the two suspects, but not other than the security.
Perhaps MPAC could set up a GoFundMe for the family of the guard.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah. So please go and find. Which place are you using? Are you using GoFundMe or?
Let me check. Our staff just set it up. It's not there. One good. Support family of Islamic Society.
So for those who are listening and who want to support the family of the security guard, we don't know who the other two are yet. Either Launch Good or GoFundMe. Just go and look for that. I'm sure there will be a lot of efforts. This is all new. It's breaking through. It just happened a few hours ago, really. I will come back again in maybe once things settle down, once we know what has motivated. It's very clear that the two attackers were carrying anti-Muslim and Islamophobic literature with them in the car. And I find it so this thing is so puzzling. So sometimes there are even Muslims who are arrested and like committing terror. Or look at this guy who tried to kill Donald Trump recently. He's going to go away for life. Can you imagine you're 30 years old and you're going to be in prison for another 60, 70, 80 years for just committing a crime which usually do not have any impact. I can't think of any in recent decades whether terrorism and hate crime leading to anything good coming out of it. So it's such a pity when I heard that they were 17 and 19-year-old to give up their lives for what? They're going to achieve nothing. I also want to, this is my last question, the anti-immigrant sentiment and hatred that has been kind of encouraged by, unfortunately, our own president, and this drive towards mass deportation and his promise that mass deportations are coming. There seems to be a kind of a dehumanization of not just Muslims but of brown people, of immigrants, of foreigners. And if you look at the rhetoric coming from Pete Hegseth, the so-called Secretary of War, he is using a lot of Crusaders type language. So there is a kind of Christianization of American politics taking place, and all of this is also contributing. Why are we not seeing more interfaith groups standing up against Islam?
I mean, there are interfaith groups standing up against this, but I think we have to really push them to do more. The reality is that even Miller has called for the deportation and denaturalization of tens of millions of Americans. Some from the Hispanic American community, from our community, and other immigrant community. And it's not so much Christianization of America that's the issue. I think it's more the
racialization.
Racialization. I think that's the word. It's the racialization of America. And they're using Christianity, even though it's not very Christian. They're doing it. It's the same thing they say about they're anything but Islamic. So these are people that have either very shallow or no understanding of Christianity. They're only using it for political power, and we should call them.
Salam, thank you very much for taking time out from this difficult moment, and our prayers and our good wishes are with the Muslim community in San Diego, especially the families of the victims and also the families of those young men who are involved in this horrible attack. We need to really focus on how our leaders are radicalizing our young people. There has been a lot of political violence in the country of late that is so un-American and so unacceptable. So anyway, thank you for coming and joining me in this short notice. And for those of you who are watching, please share this video as widely as you can. And Salam, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor, and thank you for continuing to do this great work of getting our message out.
Thank you.